All right, Jake Circus podcast. Happy Monday. We're going to start with three things I saw. Week 9 of the NFL. Welcome in. I thought it was a great day of football. Going in, we had the fantastic 4 separate games. We're going to talk about everything in three things I saw. We're going to do the London game. We're going to do the Dallas Philly game. And then we're going to start with the Sunday night game. I'm wearing the Bengals jersey for the YouTube viewers. But yeah, I thought it was a good day of football, a great witching hour. And then 3 out of the 4 marquee games proved to be, down to the wire close games. And then Seattle got thumped by Baltimore, and we'll talk about that later on in the pod. But three things I saw, we're bringing it back. It's been a while since we've done it, but no better way to do it, or no better time to bring it back than after a loaded Week 9 slate. All right, let's start. Sunday night, Bengals, Bills, best win. I think. God, what a performance by Cincy. I watching the whole game, it was multiple parts because the Bengals in the past, even when they've been good, they've started slow. And now the last 2 weeks, they've started really fast. And then halftime goes and they make the adjustments, and then they try to find ways to let the team crawl back into it. And it was more so tonight than last week. But I think if you take the last 2 weeks of Cincinnati and then you compare it to what they've done the rest of the year, you get a really concrete football team. You know what they are. They are Joe Burrow reliant, which is fine. He makes a lot of money and is your best player. But when he is healthy, there are things that he does that he can't do when he's not healthy. And that's obvious watching him the first 5 weeks of the year. And then even in the Arizona game that started this 4-game winning streak, it was, well, he still can't move and the downfield passes still aren't there. I know he had a big one to chase in that Arizona game. And then Seattle, it was, okay, they scored 3 points in the second half and they almost blew the game. They needed to rely on holding the Seahawks to 3 points in 4 red zone trips. And then the bye comes, Burrow's healthy fully. The downfield passes get there last week, and boy, were they there tonight. He was fantastic down the field. So you have to group this Bengals season into multiple different tiers because they've been different strengths. T. Higgins was out. They've been different teams throughout the season, and we've seen that from them each of the last 3 years. They've been a different team in November and December than they have been in September. And they picked the right time to play good football, and they're choosing a hell of a time right now with the way the top of the AFC looks, outside of, Baltimore, who doesn't seem to lose. But then the Chiefs look vulnerable. The Dolphins can't beat a single good team. The Jaguars look good, but is anyone really scared of the Jaguars? You have everyone ahead of you in the division. Is anyone really scared of the Bills? We'll talk about that in a second. But my one point here for the Bengals is that you have to throw away everything you saw in the first 4 or 5 weeks. And I think that's like an understandable thing to agree on. It's a realistic thing that everybody can agree on with, especially when you look at this Bengals team, because the public consensus is they've been here before and they've done this year in, year out. Now, it's not a sustainable thing that you want to do, is start 1-3 with your quarterback hurt, no full offseason, no preseason, and then you start slow out of the gate and have to pick up the slack in big time games later in the season. But they love it. Like, this crowd tonight in Cincinnati was fantastic, and they understood the assignment. They had the stripe, the jungle. It was awesome, and the Bengals get their first Sunday Night Football win in the Joe Burrow era, their first one in a long time. I think before maybe even the early Marvin Lewis days. I can't remember the last time the Bengals won a game on Sunday night. I think it was against Pittsburgh, maybe in 2012, 2013, something like that. But they have not won a Sunday Night Football game in a long time. All right, Buffalo. This has been an anti-Buffalo pod for the better part of 5 weeks, and it's not because, like, oh, I hate Josh Allen or, like, I think they suck. Is this version of the Bills, because we talked about with the Bengals different versions. The Bills, the first 5 weeks, were the number one team in DVOA. Again, that's a trend. They were the number one DVOA team in the league each of the last 2 seasons, so they're the darling team in the league. But the last 4 weeks, it hasn't been like that. Their defense has plummeted for obvious reasons. No Jones, no White, no Milano. Von Miller is still limping back from that injury he suffered early in the season. This is a different team. And the Bills decided to take away Jamar Chase. Well, Joe Burrow diced you for 350 yards to a bunch of tight ends, Joe Mixon and T. Higgins. And that's what it was tonight. It was the Bills not having enough on the perimeter, not having enough up front to stop this Bengals full strength attack. Now, going to the Bills offense, they weren't good tonight. And I've said this, I can't even count how many times on a multitude of different shows, is the Bills, this year's Bills team has two good players on offense. They have Josh Allen and they have Stephon Diggs. I don't care how many fantasy leagues you play in. Gabe Davis cannot separate, cannot catch the deep ball, and is not a good route runner. So he's their number two. They don't have Emmanuel Sanders. They don't have Isaiah McKenzie. And their offensive line has been declining for multiple years, and now it's the worst it's been in the Josh Allen era. And that is a problem because you don't have a star. I think Deion Dawkins is a very athletic tackle, but he's your best player on the offensive line. And is he really like a top-tier tackle? No. So you have two good players on offense. Kincaid's fine. Like, he's a good rookie tight end, but he's not a game changer. He was their security blanket tonight for Josh Allen. I think he had 10 catches, but he averaged less than 8 yards an attempt or per catch. Like, that's not going to do it. So when you take away the Allen Diggs stuff, which the Bengals did for the most part, Josh was uncomfortable running outside the pocket into multiple spies for the better part of the game, and they got him off script. And he really only had a great drive, the first drive and then the last drive. Everything in the middle was all Bengals. They get the red zone turnover. They turn over Josh Allen on an interception early in the game that they struggle to turn into points, but they turn him over. And keeping him off the field, it was such a key tonight, and it won the Bengals the game. So they improved to 5-3. The Bills look like this is the beginning of a spiral. Go look at their schedule. I would not be surprised at all if they miss the playoffs. That's not just because of what happened tonight. I think that their performance has been declining for the better part of a month. They lost to the Patriots. They should have lost to the Giants. They lose to the Jaguars. This team's a mess. And I don't think Josh Allen is good enough to overcome that. And I don't think this coaching staff is good enough to overcome that. All right, let's go across the pond to Germany. Number 2 of 3 things I saw. This Chiefs team, and I know it's week 9, but they're so weird because when you have Mahomes and Reed, and look, they're like, I think 6th in offensive DVOA. So it hasn't necessarily been a struggle on offense, but their best unit right now is their defense. Like, you're telling me that you score 21 points against the Dolphins on a neutral field and you win the game pretty easily. Like, a lot of stuff needed to happen for Miami to get back in that game. There was that Chris Jones phantom roughing the passer call. What a horrible play by him. The Chiefs field a punt at the 1-yard line and immediately go 3 and out. A lot of stuff needed to happen late in that game for the Dolphins to come back. And even then, it never really felt like they were going to win the game. Tua overthrows or underthrows a wide open receiver that was prancing to the end zone. I think that might have been Tyreek. I don't remember. It was like 12 hours ago. And then he drops the snap on 4th and medium, 4th and long to lose the game. This isn't going to be an anti-Tua thing. I've been hammering the point for too long. This team is a medium-sized dog. They're not going to go in and beat the big boys. They're going to beat up on the clown cars, and they're going to win the division, I think. I think maybe they're not better than Buffalo, but they're in a much better position to have a better record than Buffalo and have home field advantage. And they're going to go in first round of the playoffs, and they're going to be underdogs at home. Maybe do an AFC North team. I don't know. But this team against quality competition, whether it's the offense, whether it's Tua, I don't think this defense is very good. They looked pretty solid today with Ramsey and Howard fully healthy, and I thought the pass rush was pretty solid against a very good Chiefs offensive line. But they don't feel like a team that can make noise. Like, there's something, maybe it's the offensive line, maybe it is Tua. I can't put my finger around it, but point being, they had a chance today to start strong, didn't. Had a chance late, didn't take advantage of it. And then everywhere in the middle, it was pretty much just all Chiefs. I thought the Chiefs ridiculously outplayed them. And that defense, Spags, the way that they've built this defense, and I don't have their roster or depth chart on me right now, but what I can tell you is, first of all, not every team gets the luxury of going to a Super Bowl or losing the AFC Championship and then stealing Trent McDuffie at the end of the first round and him turning into an all-pro corner. Because if you haven't seen Trent McDuffie, he is an all-pro corner. He's one of the best in the league already, and was a rookie last year. So not every team gets the luxury of that happening, but you get a guy like George Karlaftis, and you get a guy like Nick Bolton, who I know is hurt, but he's been amazing for them this season. And to go along with Chris Jones. And, I live with 2 Chiefs fans, and they're not diehard fans, but they know the team, and they watch all the games. And there are guys on this Chiefs defense that are making impacts, very impactful plays that they've never heard of. And that's relative to a lot of the Chiefs fandom. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just making the point where, oh, it's not Chris Jones every play. It's not McDuffie making a play or Tyrann Mathieu. Everybody knew who Tyrann Mathieu was during that Super Bowl run in 2020 or 2019 when they were nails in January and February. It's these guys, fourth, fifth round picks that have just come in, be plug and play guys on cheap contracts, and they're all making dividends. I know Chris Jones is great. Obviously, McDuffie's great. Obviously, Ward's on San Fran, not Ward. But like all these guys are fan. Maybe Ward is on. No, Ward's on San Fran. I'm dumb. But like it's again, it's happened to me too. I don't have the depth chart. There are guys that before the season I've never heard of that are making impactful plays. I thought the Chiefs played really well when Chris Jones wasn't in there. Point being, this is a top 5 defense in the league. That's pretty scary because like the Mahomes weapons or lack thereof is a real thing, but it would be pretty unserious to go, well, by the time January comes around, the Chiefs offense is going to be why they lose games. That would be a crazy thing to say. And maybe that's actually what happens. Because I think in the NFL, eventually your weakness will come back to haunt you. And maybe this is their just true weakness and their defense is winning them all these games. And in January, it'll come back to bite them. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But it's November and the defense is winning them games. And that is super scary for the AFC and the defending, or for anyone other than the defending champs. All right, this might be a long one. 3 things I saw. Number 3, America's Game of the Week. It lived up. It was a good game. Eagles won. Congrats, guys. All the Eagles backers. You nailed it, guys. You said, oh, Dak on the road. That's dangerous. I don't know. This Cowboys team, they don't really seem like they're good. And what happens? Well, the Eagles fumble the ball 3 times and they recover all 3 of them. So that's why they won the game. Not because Dak had a bad game or because the Dallas isn't good. Both those things are very false. Dak was awesome. And I was watching him play the whole game, and I was like, "Oh, I cannot wait for Dallas to fuck this game away and the media to just hammer Dak." And like this is Sunday night, and I guarantee you that's what's going to happen tomorrow. Oh, Dak on the last drive. What an awful red zone performance. Oh, he can't make the big play. What the fuck game did you watch? Dak was the best player on the field today, and it's been that for most of the season. Dak's been awesome this season, and I don't know what it is with the media or with fans. It's anti-Dallas. It's Cowboy bias. Like it's still the same thing as Yankee bias. It's a lose-lose for those fan bases. And maybe some Dallas fans actually don't even like Dak, which I don't understand. But Dak is great. Dak is so good, and he was awesome today. And he put them in every spot possible to win that game. Some of those throws he made, oh, fantastic. Yeah, he comes up a centimeter short, steps out of bounds on the 2-point conversion. Oh, yeah, Ferguson didn't get the ball across the plane on a 3rd read. Dak made a good throw on 4th and goal. What do you want him to do? Like, Mike McCarthy had CeeDee Lamb running a corner route against outside leverage in a must-have-it situation. Now, I'm not blaming it all on McCarthy. I'm not. Now, I think this Dallas team still is fantastic. And my point here is for the 2nd consecutive season, because I hammered this all year, even when Cooper Rush was playing and Dak was out. And I still wasn't as high on Philly as everyone else was. And it's the same thing this year. They're even. Though I don't know what game you watched, but if you win that takeaway and said, I feel really confident that Dallas would lose to them again, or Philly would go on the road and beat them and then beat them again in a playoff game, I don't think that. And I think if you watch that game, anytime those 2 teams face off again this year, whether it's 1 more time, whether it's 2 more times, which is very possible, it's anyone's game. So the takeaway here can't be that Dak can't win the big game. That's not fair. And there's these things we do with every quarterback. That's not fair. I talk shit about Josh Allen all the time. I try to be fair. I think it's fair to say that he has won nothing in this league. And yeah, you can say the same thing about Dak. That's fine. But Dak isn't seen as a top 3 quarterback like Josh Allen is. People discredit Dak and leave him outside the top 10 in quarterback rankings that I don't care about, nor I do myself. But To say that that Dak is not a big game quarterback, I think is just blasphemy. It's ridiculous because year in year out he has these games, and yeah, there's a bunch of bad. There is with every quarterback. How many bad Joe Burrow games have we seen? Like how many bad Josh Allen games, Herbert games, Mahomes games? Almost wasn't good today. Like the way that the media spins things with Dak Prescott will never not be confusing to me because they start to make shit up and just lie about what happened in the game. And not only that, but put stuff on Dak that's not Dak's fault. The throws that Dak made today were spectacular, and he put them in every spot to win. And I'm coming out of this game with I was on Dallas and I thought they were going to win, but I'm coming out of this game with an opinion that they're going to host them in a couple of weeks. I think it's Christmas, maybe. I don't know what it is, but the next 2 months, they're going to play again. And I think Dallas is going to beat them. And then maybe they play again. But they are even. And that's not saying that I think Dallas will go further than them in the playoffs because another angle of it is, well, Philly always seems to win these games and Dallas doesn't. So that's going to give Philly home field if they were to play again in the playoffs, which is a huge advantage. But to say that you don't trust Dak Prescott to go into MNT, or not MNT, into the Lincoln Financial Field in January and win a game, I think is ridiculous. Now, I'm not saying he's going to. I'm not saying he's going to light him up again. But what else do you want to see from Dak? Because it's year 7, year 8, 9. It's year 8, 2016. And he's still doing this. And he's still getting disrespected. And I don't want this whole thing to be, oh, I'm going to hype up the losing quarterback because I thought Hurts was pretty solid today outside of the 2 fumbles that he recovered. Um, God, that pissed me off. But Dak was the better quarterback today. And I think Dallas outplayed him. And the bounces didn't go their way. The reffing wasn't fantastic, but I'm not going to use that. But Dallas lost, and I thought they outplayed Philly. So that's just how it goes. But to come away from this game and say that Dallas isn't a top team in the NFC, I think is wrong. I think is really, really wrong. All right, that was 3 things I saw. No Harrison Vatnick today. He is driving back from Georgia. Was at the Mizzou Georgia game, so he'll be back next week. We're gonna do midweek with Liddy Wednesday, so that'll be up Wednesday. We'll record Tuesday. NFL Week 9. We did all the big games. We'll start with Baltimore, and then I kind of want to have a couple of things that I have to say about the week 9. Because again, like I said it in 3 things I saw, I thought it was a really good week. I thought there were good games. I thought that the right teams won, and we saw a lot of good stuff, including the continuity of this Baltimore run that they're on. Now, what, 4 straight wins? Their last loss was at Pittsburgh, in that Pittsburgh game, the rah-rah Mike Tomlin game. But this thing, so everyone loves the Ravens right now. I've seen people say that they're the best team in the NFL. I'm not disagreeing with it. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say they've been the most dominant team. So you're wrong I'm not going to ignore the fact that they have been the most dominant team and tell you that you're wrong for thinking that they're the best team in the NFL. But I think that we've seen this movie before with Baltimore, and I'm not going to sit here and say they're gonna falter or they're gonna struggle. But they do lose games a lot that they shouldn't win or that they shouldn't lose. They've already have done that twice this year, arguably a third almost against Cincinnati week 2, but they probably shouldn't. Cincinnati was favored in that game. Anyways, Baltimore just steamrolled Seattle, and it was like a trappy line. It was -6, and everyone was like, "Well, Seattle's good. Like, this is a sneaky team. Why are they touchdown underdog in Baltimore?" That's why. Baltimore, MNT is where questionable quarterbacks go to die. Guys like Jared Goff and guys like Geno Smith and probably, Kenny Pickett too. Like, that's what happens with Harbaugh, and Mike McDonald's done an unbelievable job with this group. He'll be a head coach next year. There's 2 DCs in the AFC North that will be top of the line head coaches during this next cycle. Obviously, Lou Anarumo with Cincinnati and Mike McDonald for Baltimore. So Baltimore wins. What was the final? Baltimore wins 37-3. They averaged 6.9 yards a play. They were net 3.5 yards a play against Seattle. Like, it's hard to do that to Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll does not have that very often, where he goes on the road and just scores, just lays an egg. So this Baltimore team has been firing on all cylinders. They start November with a good win Yeah, so the last loss was October 8th. So they beat Tennessee, steamrolled Detroit, beat Arizona pretty one-sided, and then this game against Seattle. So they've won 4 straight since the loss to Pittsburgh. They're 7-2, first place in a top clutch, top loaded AFC North, and they're in the driver's seat. There's not much else we can say about Baltimore until it happens. They close with Jacksonville, San Fran, Miami, and Pittsburgh the last 4 weeks of the season. So, like, we're gonna eventually find out about Baltimore, but right now, they look like the most dominant team in the AFC. And what's so different about them this year compared to past years is the ceiling. The ceiling's much higher. You can't argue with that. You can say all that stuff about Lamar. Or, yeah, they don't have any stars on defense, but this has been probably the best defense in the league, at least top 3. But their ceiling's higher this year because of the offense and because of Lamar and the way he's playing, and getting rid of Roman and bringing in Monken and the tight end stuff and the Lamar running around having weapons to throw. The Zay Flowers effect has been a real thing. So we're seeing the ceiling with this Baltimore team, and it's pretty interesting when you look at the AFC North, and Baltimore looks way better than everybody else outside of obviously Cincinnati, who's now playing really well again. I want to give a quick shout out, Josh Dobbs. Holy shit, man. That was kind of crazy. Josh Dobbs, the journeyman, has been passed around team to team. Started games for Arizona when they were trying to lose, and now he comes to Minnesota in pure desperation. Had no business being in that game. Obviously, Jaren Hall gets to start, gets all the reps with the ones at practice, takes a concussion. It's always so interesting when guys who aren't used to taking hits, like rookies or just guys who come off the bench, and the first hit they take knocks them out. Like, it happens all the time. And that's what happened to Jaren Hall. Hopefully he gets better. But Josh Dobbs, like, I don't think Josh Dobbs had like an amazing quarterback performance. I mean, he made some dumb plays, and even Atlanta outgained them in yards per play and had more yards than them in the game. But Dobbs goes 20 for 30, 158, 2 touchdowns, no picks, rushes for 66 yards on 10 a clip, and rushes in for a touchdown as well. So I think this says more about Atlanta. Like, the ceiling with the Vikings is just non-existent, but that was a fun win for them. Atlanta, I mean, they're the playoff team that nobody cares about if they even get there. We'll talk more about who I think actually is the playoff team that nobody cares about. But this Atlanta team, I haven't liked them all year. Their defense actually grades out pretty well according to some metrics. But Arthur Smith, man, like, how much, like, he is so on the hot seat. Like, if we look at the coaches that are going to get fired, McDaniels obviously already gets fired. I think Staley's going to probably get fired as well. Maybe Rivera, maybe not. Dennis Allen's probably on his way out. But Arthur Smith, what is this, year 3 now? Year 3 of Arthur Smith. It's not getting any better. They're getting worse. And, like, they can still win that division. Like, I don't trust any team in that division, especially the Saints. I don't trust them, but they'll probably win it. But this Atlanta, man, against a third-string quarterback, guy that just got there, and you lose to them at home. Not what you want to see if you're an Atlanta Falcon fan. All right, back to some of the good. CJ Stroud, wow. A game that they should have won convincingly. 8 yards of play. Bucks had 5.3. 26 first downs to 21. Wasn't a awful Baker game. They were up 17-7. And then Houston scored, like, I think the next 3 touchdowns, took control of the game. But CJ, like, I know you guys know all the stats, obviously, but CJ goes 71%, 30 for 42, 470, new rookie record, 5 TDs, no picks. He was part of 3 things I saw a couple weeks ago after his performance against Pittsburgh. I wasn't sure. Literally, I was not sure what I was going to see from Houston this year. Like, were they going to be one of those teams that has a bad offensive line with a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach? And yeah, occasionally you'll see some flashes, but they'll have games where they just get trounced. They haven't gotten trounced this year. Like, I want to say their worst loss is week 1 to Baltimore, and it is 25-9. They lose the next week to Indy, and then they start the hot streak. They blow out Jacksonville. They blow out Pittsburgh. They lose close to Atlanta in a weird game. They beat the Saints. And then, yeah, they lost close to Carolina last week, and then win this game against Tampa. Now they go to Cincinnati next week. He's rookie of the year. I mean, it's not even close. His numbers are off the charts. He's having a better season than Justin Herbert did, which is just remarkable. We don't really see these jumps ever. Like, it never happens. Like, the fact that it happened with Herbert when he wasn't even supposed to play. Remember, Tyrod Taylor was supposed to start half the year or whatever, and he punctures his lung, or the medical doctor punctures his lung, and then the rest is history with Herbert. He played the last 16 games of the season. But the way this Texans team looked, D'Amico Ryans is that dude. He's fantastic. They have them ready to play every week. This coaching staff with D'Amico and all those guys. They outplayed Tampa, and they should not have allowed 37 points. Tampa was really lucky to get back in that game, and obviously the last drive from CJ was 45 seconds length of the field, needing a touchdown because your kicker goes out. Oh my goodness, they needed a touchdown because they didn't have a kicker. Unbelievable. Good stuff, CJ Stroud. You're fucking killing it, man, and I love it. Rookie quarterbacks. This game was supposed to be Richardson versus Young, but it wasn't. Richardson's hurt, obviously. Rough day for Bryce Young. A really, really rough day for Bryce Young. And I don't want to give up because I had 2 years of evaluation on him, and I thought he was really good. So I can't really give up. But I would be remiss to ignore what happened yesterday and what's been happening. So he hasn't played well, and maybe he's not progressing. Yeah, it doesn't really seem like he's getting better. I have to look at the tape to make any rash decisions there. But the Panthers traded up to draft a guy who is going to lead them to a season that was worse than what they had last year. And now they don't even have their first round pick because they traded it to get Bryce Young. So I get the Bryce discourse. Like, I understand it. It's not really what I'm doing here. I'm just calling it like I see it. I've always been a Bryce guy. I want him to be really good and still have faith. I'm not going to let, again, 2 years of evaluation go to waste after 9 weeks. But when Burrow was recovering, going back to 2020, when Burrow was recovering from an injury, the ACL injury, while Herbert had the best rookie season ever, the Bengals still had peace of mind that they made the right decision. And then they had their guy. Can the Panthers say that right now? No. Will they be able to say that by the end of the year? That's the goal. That's what they want. It is by the end of the year, they want to have that peace of mind that they have the guy and they made the right decision. Because when you look at what CJ Stroud is doing, and I don't think Carolina was thoroughly convinced that Young was that much better than CJ Stroud. I thought a lot of teams had them pretty even. Some teams had Stroud better. Some teams had Young better. Some teams had Richardson one. I think the Colts had Richardson one on their board. But it's all about that peace of mind where you can go into the offseason with the expectation that and the knowledge and the belief that you have your guy. And I don't think the Panthers are going to be able to say that. So what's next? Well, they're going to keep trying to win because they don't have their first round pick. So they're not tanking. So even if Carolina goes 3-14, that's still awful because they don't have their pick. They play the Bears, Cowboys, Titans, Bucks, Saints, Falcons, Packers, Jags, Bucks. So they're going to go to Chicago. We'll see if Justin Fields plays. I look at the NFC South games remaining in Tampa, in New Orleans, home against Atlanta. That's a 3-week stretch to start December, back-to-back-to-back weeks. Home Green Bay seems like it can be winnable. Obviously, home against Tampa is for sure winnable. But the way that this Panthers team is built, it doesn't really seem like they're built for success. And that goes beyond having the quarterback playing really poorly. It's a lot of dump offs. The offensive line's really bad. So you don't really get that Bryce Young 1-2 pop, go, get out. Like we saw at Bama, if that makes sense. It's 1, get out of there. 2, I take a sack. There's just things that the Panthers don't have on offense, and their defense is not good. But there are things that they don't have on offense. They don't have Adam Thielen the best receiver on the team? Who leads them in receiving? Let's take a look. Yeah, Thielen leads them in receiving, has 610 yards, averaging less than 10 a catch. Then you get to DJ Chark. So Thielen's caught 70 or 62 passes. Then you go Chark, 17, Mingo, 20, Hurst, 16, Marshall, 17, Sanders, 18, Hubbard, 19. They have a who's who of receivers. I mean, you look at Chark and Mingo, rookie. I think he's going to be good. Hurst, Terrace Marshall, Sanders, Chuba Hubbard, Tommy Tremble, Laviska Shenault. They have like all of my draft crushes from the last 3-4 years on this team, and they can't figure it out. So is it Frank Reich? Is it Bryce Young? Is it the ownership? Is it the GM? Is it everything? Probably, because they're 1-7 and they look like absolute dog shit and have no peace of mind that they have made the right decision with the quarterback and the number 1 overall pick that they traded so much to get. Let's take a break. All right, let's give out some awards. We'll do Bozo of the week in a second. The playoff team that nobody cares about. I think there's only one answer here. Washington. Congratulations, Washington. You're the playoff team that nobody cares about. You might get in. Last year, you controlled your own destiny in like mid-December, and you didn't get in. It was crazy. This year, it's the same stuff. They're the number 8 seed right now, 1 game behind Minnesota, 1.5 games outside of the 5 seed. Obviously, not in the NFC East, but they go Seahawks, Giants, Cowboys, Dolphins. 3 tough games. They go to Seattle, to Dallas, and then host Miami. Then you get Rams, Jets, Niners, Cowboys. So now that I'm looking at it, I don't even want to call this team a playoff team. They're going to be underdogs in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of their last 8 games, and they're 4-5. I thought they outplayed the Patriots, and I don't want to talk about Washington forever because I really don't think they're good. I think their defense has serious holes, and I think their head coach is not good. But if they do squeak in, playoff team that nobody cares about. Bozo of the week. Can go a multitude of different ways here. I was going to give it to Brian Daboll, but I would feel bad because they just got Daniel Jones back. You know what? Bozo of the week, the entire Giants organization. I'm sorry, Daniel Jones. I'm sorry you could keep getting hurt, but the Giants, 3 of their last 4 teams, outside of last year's team, that was a miracle, high variance, weird year where they were actually solid. I don't think they were good, but they were solid. 3 of their last 4 teams, including this year's team, are the 3 of the 8 worst Giants teams in terms of DVOA ever since they started tracking DVOA in the 90s. Ever. So it's been bad. And the new GM, I forget his name, decided to give Daniel Jones a lifetime contract. They can get out of it in a year or 2. So it's not going to look as bad. But they tried to go all in here with a roster that was nowhere near ready. And I know they're playing really, really hurt, and it's been bad. But you got blown out by Vegas with a head coach in his first week. I was on Vegas. The first week coach, the new coach theory from Bill Simmons is like a real thing. I have no trust in this Giants team. Preseason, I said that they have literally one of the worst rosters in the league. In the playoffs last year, they had the worst roster in the playoff field, and it wasn't close. They didn't get better this past year. There's franchise right tackle Evan Neal, who they got to bookend Andrew Thomas, who's actually pretty solid. Evan Neal, the fans want him gone. Like, they want to trade him for nothing. And now, obviously, you can't trade anymore, but he's been bad. They give away Leonard Williams for, what, a 2 and a 5? I want to say they got a solid return for Leonard Williams, so that was actually a pretty good move. They're 2-7. They have 2 games against the Eagles left, 1 against the Cowboys. They still play the Packers and Saints and the Rams. Oh, man. Bozo of the week, the New York Football Giants.